And we made the largest investment in infrastructure since the creation of the interstate highway system, putting Americans to work rebuilding our roads, bridges, waterways, doing the work that America needs to be done. Now today, because we took those actions, the worst of this economic storm has passed.
Absolutely. And look, this was a mistake this week for the president to go out, and our economy is in a fragile state. We've seen a little bit of signs of recovery, not because of the stimulus bill. That's hurt us, not helped us. But we're starting to see the American economy try to get going. And for him to come out and take this sort of unnecessarily antagonistic, viciously anti-business tone, even for things that may or may not be sensible. I mean,
you know, at one of the companies at EMC where I went today, wonderful company, passed on through generations. They have hung on with their precision manufacturing, high value added. They can do things that can't be shipped off to China because they're so attuned to their customers' needs. But they had 77 employees, now they got 44. And this all comes after one of the toughest decades our middle class has faced in generations. I mean, think about what's happened over the last 10 years, even before the crisis hit. Now, let me dispel this notion that somehow we were focused on that and so as a consequence not focused on the economy. First of all I think about is how we're going to create jobs in this area. All I think about is how do we get banks lending again. I've been doing that the entire year.
I mean, this was ridiculous today. All I ever think about is creating jobs. You've thought about virtually nothing but creating jobs for the last year, Mr. President.
But what I also know is that health care is part of the drag on our economy. It's part of the eroding security that middle-class families feel. You're running headlong into special interests and armies of lobbyists and partisan politics that's aimed at exploiting fears instead of getting things done. And then you've got ads that are scaring the bejesus out of everybody. And the longer it takes, the uglier it looks.
And then finally, the thing that really got me was he said, and I've been confronted on health care by the special interests. Wait a minute. You were the guy who started off this process by putting the pharmaceutical lobbyists in the room with you and ended the process by caving into the unions and saying if you were in a union or worked for state and local government, you didn't get your Cadillac plan taxed, but anybody who wasn't in a union did.
But I want you to understand, this is not about me. I won't stop fighting to open up government. Now, this is hard to do because we don't control every branch. But I can tell you, we have put in place the toughest ethics laws and toughest transparency rules of any administration in history. In history.
You know, Sean, what I really was amazed about that speech was he then went on to say, look, I've been transparent in Washington. That's why people are upset with me, is because I'm bringing transparency. Didn't we see him conducting all these negotiations on the health care bill behind closed doors, not on Cspan as he promised?
And so long as I'm president, I won't stop fighting to cut waste and abuse in Washington, to eliminate what we don't need, to pay for what we do, to rein in exploding deficits that we've been accumulating not just last year, but for the last 10.
He then said, you know what, I'm the guy who's cutting waste and fraud out of the government. Please tell us where, Mr. President. Last year, remember, he went out there and said, I'm going to cut $100 million in savings out of the budget. That was 0.003%, 3/100ths of 1% of the budget. And you know, 3/1000th, excuse me, of percent of the budget. It took them weeks, and they could come up with paper clips here, and we won't order rubber bands there.
I'm not going to win every round. But we're having a fight right now because I want to charge Wall Street a modest fee to repay taxpayers in full for saving their skins in a time of need. We want our money back.
it may be sensible to say to banks, if you get the federal guarantee for your deposits, you shouldn't be out there playing with your money by betting it on the stock market. You may be able to make some reasonable argument on either side of that question, but when you dress it up with the anti-business, anti-market, anti-capitalism rhetoric, of course investors are going to be nervous. We ought to be trying to encourage the growth of American enterprise, not discourage it.
It's another example of Obama being big government. No, I just want to have some rules in place so that when these guys make dumb decisions, you don't end up having to foot the bill.
I also think, though, part of this anger is feigned. I think this is part of an act. I think, watch what Axelrod said earlier this week, which was, we're going to pivot. And, and the president immediately had very tough rhetoric on the economy and on the banks. I think they're looking to be angry. It's Mr. Populist. Mr. Cerebral, reasonable, sensible, bipartisan has gone out the window. And now we got Mr. Hot, angry, I'm beating my fist because all I'm doing is thinking about jobs every single moment that I'm going off to get the Nobel Peace Prize or get the Olympics for Chicago.